Here we are. Hey, there we are. We're live. Welcome everybody. How you doing? Oh, someone wanna? I'm hearing echoes.
Hey guys, I'm back again. Charlie's here.
Hello, I'm
Hey,
I'm here again. I'm Sam.
how you doing?
Yeah,
Hello,
good.
it's Fraser.
Why am I getting
I'm button in.
echoes?
Do you have YouTube or Twitch unmuted?
Yeah, you might be getting the dual audio.
Hang on. We've got a first time commenter in. I must. Oh, you know what? Damn. Hang on. Let me find it. That's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah, there we go. All right, everything's better. It's all right. You can stop. You can stop panicking now. Sorry, I missed all of that because I was wondering what the hell is going on. So, RP Jeffrey, how you doing? Welcome to the stream. First time, good to see you. So sorry, we had everyone. So we had. Do you want to say hello again? Oh god.
Yeah. Hey guys, Charlie.
Charlie, how you going?
Yep. Good.
And we've got Sam
Howdy, I'm Sam.
and
Fraser, that's me.
Fraser.
Hello.
we've got Fraser as well. Okay, how's everyone doing? So, welcome back to our normal streaming time. Although actually it's daylight savings, isn't it? No one forgot. We're all in southern states here in Australia, so it's all good. We understand how.
I definitely forgot, and I lost an hour of sleep, which I'm not happy about it. So I'm waiting for daylight savings to be over already, so I can get that back.
But that's what happens if you have to get up for work and stuff like that. It's awful. I remember when I was working in the city, like, and daylight saving started, sitting on the train, and everyone just looked, brain dead from from just having to get up that hour early, and it takes a week or so
it's not
just
natural.
to get used to it. Well, the thing is, I keep finding because like it gets lighter earlier, so like I'm waking up normally like about 6 o'clock, or I was, ready for the sun. The sun's up, like time to get up. And I'm like lying in bed for half an hour, till 7 o'clock. So I don't know. For me,
Should I say it's not natural for the for like the societal norm, because it's like, all right, 1 hour shift now. But if we
Yeah.
were all getting up as the sun rose, then I wouldn't be complaining.
It'd be
Because
kind
it's
of it'd be
natural
gradual as well, though,
Yeah.
wouldn't it? Getting up to milk those cows at dawn. That's what you do, isn't it? Milk the cows at dawn. Just like we do.
feed the
That's-
chooks,
I think that's
Yeah.
part of being a game designer. Yeah.
feed the chooks, milk the cows, herd the cats.
That's how you make the money. You milk the cows, and then you go develop.
All I knew is that I was waking up at 5, and then I was waking up at 6.
Yes, that's what I was saying. Like I wasn't waking up at 5, I was waking up at 6, but now I'm waking up at 7, which is good news. So RP Jeffrey, yes, save the daylight. Would someone think of the daylight? Yeah. Yes, the daylight. So Charlie, you've had an exciting week at Games Week.
Yeah, well, it's an exciting week for everyone in the games industry. Essentially,
Ooh.
if you're in and around Victoria, at least, it's Melbourne's International Games Week, where a lot of people descend on the city for a multitude of events. I myself went to GCAP, which is Games Connect Asia Pacific, one of the big industry events in Australia, where a lot of people from actually around the world come, which is a really cool experience for me.
Did you meet people from other parts of the world? Specifically
Yeah, I did
there?
actually met a couple of people from Southeast Asia in some studios there, and mainly a lot from America. who have come
America?
down. There was yeah.
That other part of Asia, that the
Oh,
far west Asia.
Sorry,
Sorry,
I
far
wasn't solely
east.
focused on Southeast Asia. I just meant like that continent, and then also from the continent of America. Um, but yeah, but
So,
no,
so,
people
so
from all
people
around
from
the
the
world.
US, people in the US actually came to the Asia Pacific
Yeah,
Tajiki?
these were bigger
okay.
name people who are part of like the talks and stuff like that, and their
Right.
teams, like studios. But I'm not sure if you know the average game developer like you and I from the US was there, but
Probably not. Probably not. It's
probably not.
expensive. It's
It's
expensive
quite
to
of
come across.
expense, yeah.
Any names we know internationally?
Well, one of my favorite talks was done by Josh Sawyer, the I hope pretty famous, assume pretty famous game designer who sort of from Obsidian, and he was the lead designer for Fallout New Vegas, Pillars of Eternity, and a couple others I can't recall right now, but long time industry designer. So
You
it's really
didn't.
cool to hear his perspective.
You didn't invite him on.
No,
Sorry,
no.
I'm only
I,
joking.
he was standing next to me at one point, and I went to say hey, but he was a bit swamped, you know.
Oh, okay.
I went,
Fair
I
enough.
don't want a fanboy here.
Hideo Kojima, did he turn up? He's in Asia.
No, I
Oh,
wouldn't say it's that big.
it's not that big. Okay.
It's no GDC, but it's Australia. We're building our community pretty slowly and surely.
We are. We've got some. We're pretty heavy hitting for a relatively small country of what? How many? 27 million have we got? I mean, the
Yeah.
games. Look at the games that come out of Australia. We do really well. We're not AAA, I know, but we've had some amazing successes. People names that everyone knows. Hollow Knight being the most recent one. Silksong.
Silk
Yeah.
Song, and I would argue sort of Cult of the Lamb is getting up there as a pretty big
Oh yeah, 100%.
Melbourne studio one.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Was it
But yeah,
Untitled Goose Game? I mean, we're sort of getting a little older now, but
yeah,
Untitled
yeah,
Goose
yeah.
Game. There's quite a few around. Australia has always been quite well known and quite successful in developing games. Problem is we can't get the AAA stuff because we earn too much money.
Yes,
It's
but
too expensive.
I feel like that's our strength though, is the indie scene, especially
Oh,
after
100%.
my experience of the last couple of days. Like the indie scene is going strong in it, and from the talks that I went to from these international AAA studio people that I heard that they're kind of they're a little jealous.
Really?
They were waxing lyrical
Interesting.
about the early 2000s where the teams were 5 to 20 people, and
Yep.
and that's which pretty much describes a lot of our studios now.
Well, yeah, we keep going. We go a bit of a bubble bust, cycle. We did have AAA studios. We had Atari. We had who did we have? We had Sega.
Yeah.
Not here. That was in ACT. We have had some pretty big names, but they tend to sort of when it's cheap to develop in Australia, they come up and set up shop, and then when it gets expensive, they pack up and go. And
They bounce
pack,
out, yeah. Well, we still have
packed
some
up and roll.
branches like EA has
We have.
Fire Monkeys in
Yeah.
Melbourne. Who else is around? Gameloft.
Mhm.
They're worldwide. And there's like Brisbane. I think they're in Brisbane actually, not Melbourne, but
Mhm.
still Australia.
Yep.
I think
Yeah.
Other ones, yeah.
Ubisoft as well. I think
Do we
Sydney.
have a Ubisoft in Sydney? Okay.
Yeah, I didn't they shut down recently, or maybe that was not right what I heard. But I do remember there being a Ubisoft here.
It should be.
We'll need to
Mm.
fact check that one. No
We'll
one
have to
quote
check
me on
that
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what were the other highlights, Charlie?
Honestly, the highlights were just for me was just everyone like me in the same place. Everyone's making games. Everyone wanted to chat. It was just cool hearing what people are up to. Talking to people from like fully fledged studios. Me as someone who's only ever been either a freelancer or making games for free with small teams. It's cool to get perspectives from people who've been, coding for Tantalus, who's like making engine tweaks for Age of Mythology, hearing their journey in game dev and what it's like. But just like getting all the walks of life and yeah, having the chats. It's good for inspiration, that's for sure. Like I am feeling charged now for a lot of my projects.
Interesting. Cool. Oh,
Yeah.
good to hear. Anything else that sort of stood out?
Um,
Or that was it?
no, like kind of all of it. You know, the talks themselves, they're all really well curated. You can really sort of choose what you want to you know, there's all sorts of number on. You can really choose what you want to follow, whether it's really technical, whether it's really art driven, whether it's production driven, or like completely business and management. So you can really get
Ooh,
information that you really want to. And then, sort of the best thing about it is after those talks, those people are just kicking around too, and you can just go talk to them further.
yeah,
And
yeah.
everyone's really welcoming, so it felt like a good environment for that.
That's I think at those events, that's definitely where the benefit is. You're outside and you sort of bump into people and chat with them. One story that I have from being at GDC, which is like a long time ago now. I think 2012 I was there, and I was just in a queue to get a cup of coffee, and there was a Japanese woman standing there. We started chatting. And it turned out she was from Square Enix, and she was looking for some Australian Western developers to actually work with and stuff like that. So,
Cool.
it's not the sort of thing that happens, as you're walking down the street or lining up for a coffee just randomly in Melbourne. But
No, not at all.
places like GCAP, GDC, and stuff like that, you can,
Yeah, well,
you can do that.
lining up for coffee, I think, might be a common factor here as well, because that is pretty much where all my conversations started.
Yeah,
Was
yeah,
either
100%.
sitting in a talk ready for one to start, or out by the coffee machine. They're the go-to places.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you'd recommend it? I mean, it's not that cheap as it was. $500-600 bucks. I
It's
think I was looking at.
very expensive to go, but if you you're lacking motivation, you're needing community, you want to meet some people, I highly recommend it. Like, I've come back with a lot of numbers, a lot of people that I've already reached out to, and we sort of plan to stay in touch, and just seeing some local talent. Like, there's some people doing their games at the PAX booths this weekend, which I'm gonna walk around and go see them and
Oh yeah,
stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's well worth it. Like, it is expense, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna claim that on tax too. It's
absolutely,
business
yeah.
trip.
Because I think
Yeah.
that was what you were saying was your main motivation was to actually make some contacts in the industry and stuff. And
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
yeah, are you keen on moving from what you're doing? You're doing sort of more solo type stuff to joining a bigger studio or something. I mean, is that something you'd do?
Yeah, like, that's kind of the goal. But it's funny because you talk to all different people, and there's people in big studios already, and it is like a nice secure little job and doing stuff. But then you talk to the solo dev, and they got complete freedom
Yeah.
to do whatever. And then you talk to people in small teams who are like collaboratively doing all these things. So I think for me personally now, I kind of want to focus on just sort of building that small team and then
Yeah,
going from there, which I kind of already am a little bit,
yeah.
You know,
I
like,
agree.
even with you, Sam, like the project we're working on, like, I've got my fingers crossed that we all push forward and do that a bit more after our game jam.
Cool.
Still there,
Sam
Sam?
still on?
Yeah, yeah. I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
sorry, I just zoned out. I was reading. I was looking at the game page for the
Oh yeah.
game festival. But yeah, the game jam was awesome.
Yeah.
Is that
But yeah,
finished
like,
now?
so-
Did you guys do that? And
Yeah, we finished.
that wasn't
We actually just
that wasn't
got told there
Ludum.
was a...
That wasn't Ludum Dare, was it?
Nah.
Jam Septiceye.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
like Jacksepticeye or something. I can't remember what it is.
Okay.
Keep
Interesting thing is-
checking. I keep checking itch.io, and we keep getting comments on it, which is pretty cool.
Oh, well, can we have a look at this at some time, maybe next week or something? I mean,
Yeah, definitely.
you've got an
Yeah.
is there like a playable demo or something up there that you'd be happy for people to look at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one there. That we've got one progression stopping bug though, which we've found, and we've been told that we're allowed to amend, even though submissions have finished. So we will do that. I was actually just looking at the code before I jumped on here, but
Right.
yeah, once that's sorted, I'll throw the link in the chat next time, and people can get to it.
Cool. Sounds good. All right, so
Yeah.
definitely recommend Melbourne Games Week, GCAP, etc.
Yeah.
If you're into the game design and development sort of area, then that's definitely a thing to attend. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's finished now.
Programming too, like all walks.
Yep.
I will say before we move on to going to the Agdas is an experience as well. Very
Yeah.
fun. Like it's a full awards ceremony kind of thing, and
Okay.
yeah,
Like the Oscars
great
kind of
place
thing.
to be. Yeah, it's like the Oscars of games in Australia, but that you're just at. So I had a lot of fun with that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Maybe
Yeah.
next year. Maybe we'll make if we're still doing this next year, maybe we'll go and do a live stream
Hey,
from there.
yeah,
That could be
okay.
good, couldn't it? All right, cool. So, all right, so that's some interesting stuff that's been going on. Now let's get to the meat and potatoes of what we're here.
Let's do it.
And this is something we did talk about this last week, didn't we? I think. Hang on, let me. Should I stream it over Discord for you guys to see, or are you happy to see it?
Yeah,
I'm-
a response
fine.
might be a little delayed, but that'll be fine.
You're
I think.
okay on stream? Okay. So, mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics model, otherwise known as MDA. We did talk about this last week, and I don't think any of you had come across it before, which was kind of a little surprise for me. I haven't taught you game design, so I didn't teach any of you game design, did I? No, I don't think so. So-
Game design principles for me.
I did teach you game design principles, and I didn't teach you MDA. Oh dear, that's bad, bad, Chris.
Well,
Okay.
well, better late than never.
Yeah. Okay. Now that you graduated and everything, well, let's actually learn something useful now. Yeah, we don't have to be stuck in the past. So look, there is this thing called the mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics model, and it's about games. It's a model for games. And let's get in the next slide. Here we go. So yeah, it's one of the most well-known models for games, the MDA framework. It's been around for quite a while. And it actually comes from the industry, interestingly enough. So it was developed between 2001 to 2004 and taught as part of the game design and tuning workshops at the Game Developers Conference over in GDC over in the US. So more than 20 years. It's been around for 20 years. There is a paper, an academic paper, which is cited a lot. If you go to Google Scholar and you look it up, you'll see it's been cited thousands of times. So yeah, it's got a place. It definitely has a place in game design. And just to explain it very briefly, if you like, so there's three parts to it. You got your mechanics, you got your dynamics, and you got your aesthetics. But what do all these mean? Mechanics we probably know a little bit about, and this is sort of looking at the game as a collection of components. So it describes the components of the game at the level of data, representation, and algorithms. Then there's dynamics, which is game as a dynamic system. I'm sure we can all imagine that. And describes the runtime behavior of the mechanics acting on player inputs and each other's outputs over time. So basically this is systems. We're saying the game is a system. But then there's finally, which is the interesting one, I think in many ways, so a game as a player experience, describing the desirable emotional responses evoked in the player when they interact with the game system. So the way I would describe it is the mechanics basically are those things that a game studio would build, or your development team would actually build. So you need to build the components of the game, put them together, and then they actually run. Whereas if you look at the other end of the spectrum, you've got aesthetics. So aesthetics is an interesting term. It has kind of, unfortunately, multiple different meanings in a way. So aesthetics here really talking about player experience. We're not talking about how it looks nice or anything. We're talking about aesthetics as in an aesthetic experience. And this is where I sort of say to people, like, it's very hard to translate what we call aesthetics here. So desirable emotion responses, etc. It's not that easy to translate those into the mechanics. So as a designer, if we're designing player experiences, which is what I think a good game designer is actually focused on, then the question becomes, okay, well, I want the player to have X experience. How do I translate that into the mechanics so that my design team can actually build it? Is that fair enough?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a really nice basis of how three different ways, if you like, to look at games or look at different sections of games. So you can look at your game as the building blocks, a collection of components, static components. You can also look at your game as a set of dynamic systems. But then the important one really is the aesthetics. So if you get the aesthetics right, if you get the player experience right, you're successful. Yeah. I mean, if you get the player experience, the player's experience is what the player cares about at the end of the day. So if you don't create a good player experience, you haven't got a good game. Sam?
I guess that emotional component is quite important.
Quite important.
Very,
Only if you want a successful game.
But you can sort of... It all sort of works together from all the conjugate parts, like from the visuals to the sound and the music. Because it just sort of... I guess I'm probably going to get into more psychology sort of territory.
That's right.
But you do sort of... For me, I associate like music from games that I played as a kid, and whenever I hear them, it takes me way back to the fun I had and the memories I made, and getting along with the characters and the feelings of accomplishment.
For sure. Yep. And they are quite complex, aren't they, as well, when you think of all the different components that come together to create a game. More than any other creative medium, there's quite a high level of complexity in there, which involves both the interaction and the look and the feel and the art side and the music side.
It's interesting thinking about these. It feels very geared towards designers. Like aesthetics kind of feels like it's split up into thirds, as if they're each 3 separate categories. But when I'm looking at it, it very much feels like aesthetics is the goal, and this model is to help us understand how we can impact that through mechanics and dynamics.
Absolutely.
That's sort of how I'm interpreting too. Like, you create the mechanics, which in turn, create the dynamics, which mechanic and dynamically will set the emotional player experience, which is the aesthetics here. So I guess I see like a flow through effect here.
Yeah.
But
So
like,
it's a
where
way of
do
looking at
the visual aesthetics fit into this? Because I see that as very much part of the emotional sort of key to players.
Of course. Yeah.
I kind of see that fitting into mechanics. If I'm sort of broadening it a little bit, I kind of see mechanics as the things we can actually put into the game.
Yeah.
Dynamics is the way they all interact with each other, and then aesthetics is the way we see it.
Yeah,
So it is
true.
like a bit of a trip up. I think the sort of categorization feels, those words have a very strong definition, and you sort of have to divorce them from that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Mechanics are so problematic. Like we use that term mechanics for so many different things, and there's no one definition for what mechanics is. It's a very problematic term. But in this instance, it's the fundamental building blocks of the game, not the mechanics as we think of them as like the dynamic things you do in the game.
I find the definitions of terms we use with game design are
terrible. Absolutely terrible.
yeah. Like the research paper that I've come across for this topic, aesthetic sort of looks at how a game, what makes a game fun, but fun is very subjective from audience to audience.
Yeah.
So they've split it into different categories of, portions of interest, like sensation, gamers sense pleasure, fellowship, game as a social framework, and fantasy, discovery, narrative. All sort of different aspects that fit into different genres.
Yeah. And that's the challenge, though, isn't it? If you think of all the games out there, and you think about the player experiences, so Rust is a game that I like to use as an example, because you build a base, you go and get stuff, you do you build, you do farming, and then you put everything together, and then someone comes along and raids your base and takes all your shit and kills you and teabags you, and it's like, that's a fun game. Like, that's not really fun. I mean, getting raided or killed and having all your shit taken away, that's not what I would describe as fun. It's compelling though. But you compare that to, say, like a cozy game, some of these cozy games. They both have their aesthetics, but those aesthetics are really quite different.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that we could delve into, and you were talking about psychology earlier on, Sam, as well. So, the whole psychology of like what people find compelling, pleasurable, compelling is there's a very broad number of things there.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, aesthetics. If you want to do a PhD in this area, mate, there's plenty of work to do. So there's loads of things to look into.
I think I'm good for the undergraduate just for now.
No problem. Does anyone else have any comments before we move on to the next slide?
Nah.
All good?
Continue.
I think to jump in.
Yep. No, go.
It's reminding me of weeks ago when we looked at those emotional models.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking about how helpful that is to attach to sort of the end of this, the idea of like describes the desirable emotional responses, and thinking about our discussion we had, sort of identifying the different emotions you can feel in a compelling game and how you bounce between them. I think that's, for me, kind of like that core of the player experience is, how they move between emotional states.
Yeah, I was revisiting that just last week, and I was wondering, because obviously that was just you and I, Fraser, but now we've got Sam and Charlie. It could be interesting to sort of revisit that and see what Sam and Charlie sort of think of that model. We could sort of redo that. Because it wasn't just fun, was it? There was some unpleasant parts of that emotional model. So we might do that in coming weeks.
Yeah, I feel like that psychological layer is something that is a part of every game. Like it's as humans, we're emotional, psychologically driven beings. Like it's something that you need to factor into every part of the game, and it's something I definitely think about, and everything I try to do is, which I guess just translates to the player experience, but there's a psychological element to everything.
Yes, absolutely. We've got someone waving to us from the chat. Paxian Games, how you going? Welcome. Okay, so let's move to the next one. Yeah, we're all good. Mechanics, dynamics, aesthetics. We've got that clear. Yep. So, what we've got here, one way to look at this is like a 3-level causal chain as well. So one way to look at it is as three separate lenses, if you like, which is, if you know Jesse Schell's books, 100 lenses of game design. This is sort of 3 lenses, if you like. So you can look at a game through the lens of aesthetics, dynamics, or mechanics. So you look at the same thing, but you're focusing on a different sort of idea. So there's another way to look at it as a 3-level causal chain, which is suggested as one way to use this in game design. I'm not sure that I agree, but I'm going to throw this out here and see what you guys think about it as well. So here it says the mechanics or the game components give rise to the dynamics. Yeah, that's all good. Game systems which elicit aesthetics. So we've already decided on that. So if we can see just down the bottom there, I've put that in just a little simple diagram. Mechanics actually create the dynamics and the aesthetics. We can also go back the other way as well. So we can say the aesthetics sort of rely upon the dynamics and the mechanics. We can look at it from a game design point of view from either end. So we can think about the mechanics, how they create the aesthetics, but we can also look at the aesthetics, what mechanics are needed to create those aesthetics. So so from a practical point of view, this is what's put forward. Now, I don't know whether I agree or not how useful this is. Something I want to maybe throw at you guys. But it's said that it lets game designers reason forward. So for instance, if we add a cooldown mechanic, what dynamics emerge? Or backwards. So players feel boredom Players feel boredom. We have failed at our job. No, anyway. So if players feel boredom, which dynamic or mechanic must change? So we're starting. We're starting the mechanic side of things. So adding a cooldown mechanic. It's kind of interesting. What dynamics emerge if we feel boredom, which is the aesthetic side of things? What dynamic or mechanic must change? I'll throw it to you guys. Any thoughts on that? Any ideas?
I feel like in a lot of my designing will work in both directions as described here. Like usually I'm starting from an aesthetics point, from the trying to understand I want to settle on a firm position for what player experience I want them to have, and then typically work backwards to try and make that happen through the mechanics. But sometimes it'll be a case of you come up with a mechanic that you like and you want to implement it, and you have to figure out if it is helping or hindering the player experience. So I'm like, I think you definitely can use it both ways, but I'd say you're maybe gambling a little bit if you're starting with a mechanic.
Okay. Anyone else?
I tend to agree with all that, but I feel like, we're all very different, and the fact that it does sort of go either which way from the mechanics starting point or the aesthetics starting point, I think it could really work for some people. And I have heard of people who make a mechanic and then design a narrative and a whole story and the experience around that too. So I don't knock that down, but I feel like I would definitely start from the player experience side of things. As for this practical use sort of slide here, I guess it does sort of break it down in a way for if as a designer you do struggle to go like, why are my players feeling boredom, or like why am I not getting a desired effect, to then look into your mechanics specifically and what dynamics are emerging from them, and allow you to assess what changes to make. It sounds like seems like a good tool to have at your disposal.
Do you think you'd use it?
Well, I think I intuitively use this when I am sort of putting things together and getting people to test them. Because obviously when you do make something to test, you are typically getting to test the specific thing. So you can sort of get the feedback on all that, and then you're sort of naturally gone to this point where you've gone, in this case, the cooldown mechanic, you're getting the people, what they feel from that, and then you'll adjust accordingly depending on your player experience that you're aiming for.
What are your thoughts, Sam?
It's very similar to Fraser and what's been said. For me, it sort of takes me back to when I did my capstone project. It sort of evolved naturally over time as I did the game design document, and I sort of figured out what sort of experience I wanted to have, what sort of feelings I wanted to try and evoke. Because before that, I was just sort of experimenting with random mechanic ideas and wasn't really getting anywhere until I sort of found one which, like lighting controlled by player movement. So I had no direct control over it. But it stuck out as a really cool tool which gave me a bit of an emotional response.
So that was the lighting you're talking about, which actually gave you that sort of aesthetic response you're looking for. So when you started that game, so the game is, we just briefly describe it for people who obviously haven't seen it.
It's like a psychological horror where you're set in an office space. You get trapped in an endless stream of boring tasks where there is seemingly no escape.
Yeah, and it's kind of a walk. I mean, I'd describe it as sort of a walk 'em up in a way.
Yeah.
A walk 'em up with some extra things in it, because you have to go and do tasks and sort of mystery horror kind of thing.
Yeah.
So what was your original thought when you were doing that? Because you talk about, including the the lighting dynamic. So what were you
In the
trying to
begin-
achieve?
In the beginning, it was gonna sort of, the idea was more like a narrative, sci-fi, horror type thing, more inspired from Half-Life, where you had sort of experimental devices to manipulate the environment. But I played with it. It didn't really feel fun for me, and I sort of felt that it wasn't. It didn't sort of tick enough boxes of originality for me to continue with. And then I think I was sort of experimenting with lighting up some of the rooms, and that's when I sort of discovered that changing the atmosphere of the actual world in response to the player sort of helped me realize that the environment is a mechanic as well. It's a component that you can use to, guide, the experience.
Absolutely, yeah. When you're talking about things like that in lighting, dynamic lighting, I think it does take me back to like Silent Hills PT, where the lighting changes in that. It goes from that sort of raining and sort of dark, it's glum kind of lighting, to this sort of really intense red pulsing lighting, which creates a big difference in the mood.
Yeah, and I think at the time I had a bit of an obsession with how a location can change over time and be in different states.
That's quite interesting, actually, when you talk about the lighting as a mechanic in itself. I don't think we ever think about it in that way.
No, it just seems like a set piece that doesn't usually get much airtime.
So does it become a mechanic when does it become a mechanic? Is that when it responds to the player's actions, or even if it's just doing things on its own?
I think both. Because if you're using
it, either. Okay.
If you're using it to guide the player, that has an emotional response, like a light bulb moment that this is where they're meant to go. But also if it's used as a interactive sort of element, then it also has that same emotional response.
Okay. I think we could dive more into that. Probably not today, but that's kind of an interesting area to go into. I mean, I think ways of creating better design, game design, and deeper sort of feel is a really interesting way to go. I think we're sort of getting right into the sort of psychological place. So yeah, look, that's really interesting. Does anyone else want to make any comments? I don't think I've got any more, so it's just going to be quite brief. But
as I say, I did have a very straightforward, practical example of this sort of thinking the other day in this new concept that Jim and I have been working on, which I'll show off next week, I promise.
Cool. Look forward
there's
to it.
a part of the mechanic is fishing out these physics objects out of the water, and you load them into this like chimney cannon thing, and then you have to launch them up into the sky. And so I was just running through the logic of it, and I was like, well, you got to be standing in this spot, you have to hit the interact button to open the hatch door, put the physics object in, hit the button to close it, and then you hit the button to launch it. And I had a moment describing it to Gemma where I was like, that's kind of lackluster though. Like, it's all happening in one spot, it's the same input kind of over and over again, especially like close the hatch, hit the button. We'd have to do a lot of work to differentiate those. And so I was thinking about how the mechanics of that were affecting the aesthetics, and I was like, well, if it's this cannon, it's this tall like chimney cannon pointed directly up, why don't we move the button to the top, so you load it in at the bottom, then you go to the top and you fire it, and then that way we can encourage the player to look up and actually see the prop get launched up through it, and it moves the player into another state, and it sort of helps them because the way the boat is laid out is like there's the ground floor where you load the cannon, there's a mid deck where you can steer, and then the top deck where you fire it, and so it's like it kind of primes you to get back moving again. It'll make more sense when I have a visual to show.
As you're saying that, I have this image of some sort of cocking mechanism which actually controls how powerful the launch is as well. You didn't mention that, but that just is what I'm thinking. Because then you're sort of adding this extra element, and maybe it takes strength and time to pull that down, like a spring. You're pushing a spring down, and then that launches it up. You can steal that if you like, if you want to.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so adding just variety. I mean, that's not even sort of you didn't really add different gameplay or anything there. You just added an element of variety. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's that, I think for me, it's very much like that physical separation. You know, there's a difference between standing in one spot, pressing buttons over and over again, and the whole, like, the kind of whole point of the game is you drive your boat around, but while the boat's driving around, you can, like, let go of the wheel and walk around. Like, the whole point is to be moving from station to station while things are happening. So it just made more sense that you would have to fire it in a different spot than where you loaded it.
I'm looking forward to seeing that. That sounds very interesting.
I hope I can sort of duct tape it all together well enough for a demo next week. We've got a lot of ideas.
We're pretty hard critics here, so you want to make it so it's actually good.
Yeah, looking forward to showing it off.
All right. So just for anyone who missed this, MDA, mechanics, dynamics, aesthetics. So just to wrap up. Mechanics. This is an old model that's been around for a hell of a long time, more than 20 years now. Came from GDC, and it describes a game as the mechanics, which is the collection of game components, dynamics, which is the game as a dynamic system, and aesthetics as a player experience. So it's a very interesting model. I think it has a lot of limitations from a practical point of view. I have actually used this as the basis of the language or model that I sort of put together as part of sort of my PhD program that I'm doing right at the moment. So we might talk more about that in time, some more sort of practical elements that I've put on top of it. But I think this is a very good way, a very good foundation of the way that we can look at games, because one of the biggest challenges, which is what I originally pointed out, is connecting the aesthetics, which is, ideally as a game designer, we're thinking specifically about the player experience or the aesthetics. We want the players to have what I call an engaging experience, whether that's fun, whether that's, hurt me plenty kind of engagement. That's fine, but we need to translate those aesthetics, which we're describing as sort of emotional states. We can't just tell our development team, if we have a separate development team, create me a scary player experience. I mean, programmers are going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? I can't do that. You need to tell me what I need. You need to tell me. Yeah, you need to tell me. You need to give me the components I need. You can tell me how they fit together, how they communicate together, so I can work out, what classes to create, what data structures that I can put together, and how I can put that all together to create the actual experience. So this is the problem. We're thinking aesthetics, or the player is playing aesthetics. So we wanted to design aesthetics, but when you go to your development team, you are developing mechanics. So this is the crux of the problem, I think, in game development, design and development, that we have this difference between the two things that we're trying to do. And games are very complicated. There's a lot of moving parts, so it's very easy to get it wrong. And we want to not get it wrong. So there we go. Cool. So that's MDA. So there we go. So let's move on to the next thing we're looking at. We didn't talk about this, Fraser, but you're up next. You're running the next session. Hey!
It's been a couple of weeks.
It has been a couple of weeks, yes.
Since the Australia Plays report was published.
Should I share your... Are you going to share your screen?
It's probably just as easy if you want to just share the report itself. The link, it is hyperlinked in the stream discussion document.
Oh, we're giving away our secrets here. Yeah. Oh, look at this. Australia Plays. It looks like gaming is actually a some sort of serious thing that the government gives a crap about. Is this true? Is this a report? Bond University and everything? Australia Plays 25?
Yeah.
Goodness me.
Crazy.
Look at
But yeah,
that.
so this came out a couple of weeks ago, and essentially, from what I understand, it's basically a massive survey of Australians and their gaming habits and relationships and understandings. It's quite a read if you go through the whole thing, because it is just the data with very minimal sort of context or interpretation.
Did you sit down and read the whole thing?
Yeah, so on a couple weeks ago, Zebedee and I spent 2 streams worth of time going through and looking at each page and each point of data. We do have a question in the YouTube chat. Why did they choose aesthetics in MDA?
Sorry, I just
Any
saw that
insights?
as well. That's because aesthetics. So this is MT 3D scans. Answering your question there. So if you go into aesthetics, is something that has been studied for a very long time. We're going back to like Aristotle and Socrates and those kind of guys back in the Greek sort of philosophical areas. So aesthetics is all about the sort of appreciation of art, whether that is visual art, sculpture, poetry, literature, etc. So aesthetics is the thing is, we use this term now a little bit sort of incorrectly. Often we use aesthetics to say the visual style, but that's kind of a more of a modern general term for aesthetics. So the reason I think they use aesthetics is because what we want to understand is the human response to art, or the human response to the game. It is confusing. It definitely is confusing. So I use the term player experience. I don't use aesthetics for that reason, because I think it is quite confusing.
It does feel like a classic sort of academia thing, where it feels like, because aesthetics has that historical definition, it's easier to use that rather than say player experience, which you kind of need to define in whatever academic piece you're making. And I feel like I see that a lot, where it's like, we're using this definition from here because we can cite it, rather than having to spend, X number of pages defining a new term, even if it's something like player experience, which I think most designers can sort of intuit the meaning and get a quick handle of. But yeah.
That is true. Yeah, and I think the term player experience, but then the term mechanics is very confusing as well. So we're not talking about mechanics as in what we often think of mechanics as game design as being something that the player does in the game. So a mechanic might be jumping, for instance. That's what we think about as a mechanic, or wall running if we're doing like a parkour type of game. Mechanics in the MDA doesn't mean that, so it means something quite different. So MT 3D scans. Hopefully that explains what they mean. You can just tell people player experience. Yeah, they don't need to use that term aesthetics. So there we go. Okay, let's come back to the Australia Plays 25.
Yeah, so if you want to jump to page 4, that's going to be the key findings and sort of the key findings.
What do they call these? They call these. What are they? An infographic.
Yeah, infographic. But yeah, I think there's some interesting things going on. I've tried to pick out a few pages in particular, just so that we're not here all day. But I think one of the interesting ones is a 51% female proportion of gamers. So up from 48%. So it's just crossed that line. And I mean, that's 1% over half. So, functionally half. But I think it's a good reminder that games are universal. They're not boys' toys like they used to be sort of thought of.
Yeah, it's kind of like that watershed moment of exactly as you're saying, that this year sort of marks the time that we understand that it is a very gender diverse pastime.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely like it's been a long time that it's sort of been shared and played by everyone. And
Do they tell us what sort of games? Do they break that down at all? In the
we get a little bit of insight into how people are playing games, like what devices they're using. But no, I think that the like sort of typical expectation is that you've got this sort of generation of maybe mums who are playing a lot of like mobile games.
Yeah.
But I think some of the other stats, from what I can interpret, it seems like people are just playing games more and more. And so as the population's getting older, that sort of large spike in that sort of demographic is sort of flattening out as everyone is just playing games all over the place.
Mm.
And I feel like that would be a natural progression from the sheer amount of like diversity of games out there.
Yeah.
Such as, the amount of puzzle games that can satisfy everyone's sort of desire for a kind of puzzle or a cozy thing. It's not just the couple of genres that sort of pioneered and stuck at the top for a long time. I guess I'm saying is there seems to be something for everyone as the years go on.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. I think that's completely correct. I mean, it used to be whenever I talk about games, it was always the shooter. The classic.
Yeah.
We're talking last week. The first person shooter type games, which were very popular for a very long time, and they still are popular. But we have other genres coming out now that don't necessarily include shooters. I mean, we've talked on this channel as well about sometimes the assumption that you need shooting in a game. So we've talked about that with Mirror's Edge, like the ridiculous combat in it. And that came out, Mirror's Edge, when did it come out? It's well over 10 years old now, Mirror's Edge.
Yeah.
And the
Googling.
other one as well, is Death Stranding. I think Death Stranding
2008.
didn't need combat in it, and yet it had combat in it because
2008.
why? 2008 was Mirror's Edge, so that's 17
Yep.
years ago. Make you feel old.
Yeah.
But we're getting that, and I think sometimes that was actually a business decision. Like that was a decision made by the executives who thought, oh, you can't have a game without shooting in it. Without killing in it. And it's only, I think, now that that people realise, well, hang on, there's a lot more involved. There's a lot more opportunity out there. We don't have to have killing in our games at all.
Mm.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I think winding back a little bit, if you jump to page 6, we get a nice graph of the game households over time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this I find really interesting for a number of reasons. But so you can see down there, this is from 2005 up to now. And so they define a game household as a home with at least one device on which video games are played. Does that include mobile phones?
Yeah,
I'm not 100% sure. But it is a device which games are played, not can be. So we're seeing from this survey, almost 90% of households are playing games, which I think, yeah, it makes sense. Games are really popular, but it's interesting to see the dip in 2019 into the spike in 2023 before dipping back down again. I think before going into this, I was kind of expecting it to have continued to rise over time with a spike around 2020 with COVID, but it seems like people have put the games down a little bit. The people who maybe picked it up in 2020, 2021 are back to, I don't know what people do when they don't play games.
Just looking at
You
walls,
don't know what people do when they're
I
not
don't know.
playing games. So it is interesting. It's gone down from looks like 94% down to 89%.
Yeah.
this year. That's quite surprising. I can't even think what might be driving that.
Yeah, I don't
So
know.
yeah,
I don't know.
To
People
me,
have
that's
thrown-
sort of
Thrown them out. They've thrown their consoles away.
yeah. To me, I look at that and I interpret that as 2019. When we go 2020 COVID, and then the rise begins. Right, people start discovering more and more games. They continue it for a couple of years, and now they're sort of like, I don't, that was really fun for a while, but I've still got all this other stuff to do in my life, and they've kind of put it down a little bit as their lives have just continued. But,
So I'm just wondering,
that's just
looking back here, sort of 82% of all Australians at the same time play video games. So even though this is going down, that is going up. So I don't know. How do you interpret that?
This is one of my gripes with this, and maybe it's not fair because this is just the report, but yeah, I'm like, a lot of these stats are just kind of just there with no context and no
just
sort
raw
of
data to
insight.
interpret. as
Yeah, and so I'm like,
I think what we should do is look at the methodology.
Sure. Why not? That'll make it fun.
like
that'll make a
how
fun
they've-
video.
yeah. Well, we can jump to page 10,
Page 10?
which is we get the sort of gender proportion breakdown again, but we also get a nice graph of the age of players, which I think is really interesting.
Oh wow. 85 to 94, 70. Is that a percentage? 73%.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really interesting. Paxton Games is asking whether they go into detail about where they get their numbers.
Yeah, I've had a look at the methodology, and it's a very small sample size, and it's from an online opt-in panel, so it could be a bit reflective.
I was about to say I'm a gamer. I never got this this questionnaire. I feel I'm not reflected in this.
Yeah.
That's actually
How
one of the
widespread was it?
That's one of the challenges I think that's coming up on a lot of these sort of things. If you're anything like me, I don't answer the phone. If I don't know, if someone calls me and it's an unknown number, I'm just like, well, leave a message if you're someone I want
it's
to get back to.
important.
Yeah, you'll leave a message and I'll get back to you. So, and quite a few times there's been like a message from one of these what do you call them? Who do these sort of surveys, and I'm like, I'm not calling you back. I've got other things to do. So we're missing out. Like I just they're actually finding it very hard to connect with a lot of people now. So I don't know how realistic all this data is. It's very hard to say.
Yeah, they do cover, or they have a brief paragraph on it, on the second to last page in here. But yeah, I mean, they're all good points. Yeah.
I guess what we can say is it's probably indicative of the sample size that they've taken, and then we could be sure on that, but just how big that sample size is.
I think it's, what did they say, 1,300?
1,300.
Okay.
That's considered to be a reasonable size. That is considered to be a reasonable size.
Compared to like the total number of households in Australia, it's a very, very small percentage.
Sure, fair enough.
Yeah.
Trust me, bro. I'm the government. Yeah, I trust the government implicitly. They'd never lie to me. I'm sure. What I find interesting, because I did. There was a woman I know a number of years ago who was doing research into the elderly and how online gaming for them was really useful to, because often, when you get to 85 to 94, which is the one we've got down there, 73%, once your sort of body starts failing and you can't get around, she was finding a lot of elderly people were getting into online gaming, where you could talk to people and you could chat and whatever, and it was really actually helping their quality of life, as they blew into some guy's base in Rust and teabagged him.
I can understand
I think
that.
you're doing what I normally do, Chris, and you're looking ahead at the slides here.
Oh no, I didn't. I was just looking at this one here where it says 73%. No, sorry.
Yeah. No, for
Well,
sure.
full disclosure, once I am in the age bracket of 85 to 94, I am totally relying on VR being quite good. And
I hope so.
I'll happily just sit in a couch, sit
Yeah.
in my chair and, be traveling the world still, who knows? Or raiding a base in Rust.
Absolutely. I'm sure Rust will still be going, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's, I don't know, I can really understand that curve in that context, right? Like, the sort of younger you are, typically the more games are appealing, and then as you get older, you have other responsibilities, you lose that sort of time. But then yeah, once you sort of reach an even older age again, you get that time back, and you start to, like you said, whether it's your body's not working, or your grandkids or whatever are playing those games. It seems like that's, yeah, I can understand why that curve comes back up. I am interested in that 47% of 1 to 4 year olds playing games. That seems a little young, in my opinion, to be.
Yeah. What's a 1 to 4-year-old playing? Like,
We're
what's
talking
considered a
video.
game?
We're talking video games, aren't we? We're not talking about playing in the sandpit.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean-
Like, is this the iPad sort of generation thing? Is what we're seeing here? Is that it? Where parents give
yeah.
the 1 to
Yeah.
4-year-old a pad to tap away on?
And so I wonder how that number changes over time. If there's if there's an influx of people concerned about kids that young on iPads, or if it's just gonna follow the trend of continuing to rise, and once you put a computer in front of a kid, they're just gonna do whatever they can, it lets them, essentially.
Hmm.
Don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, bad parenting. I mean, I've got friends who've got young kids, and they very much limit the amount of time they can spend on their phone. But what's really interesting is when the kids do get hold of a phone, which is unlocked, they're just locked in on it. All three of them, they're just around the phone,
Yeah.
and they know how to find. Go to YouTube, find their favorite kids channel, and they're just like, yeah, and that's it. And it's quite interesting, and they really like it. There's something very, very attractive to those screens for kids.
Yeah.
And
And it makes sense. It's that whole the dopamine pathways being fired very early on for those kids. But I've been hearing a lot of and I haven't read so much, but just like conversations with friends and that. And I'm at a time in my life where a lot of people are having kids, and a lot of my friends are going through that. But just like, if those, the iPad kid generation really falls in, and like, who are we to say, bad parenting and make these judgments when you're not going through it yourself, or maybe don't understand the responsibilities or the things that you have going on in your life. But the things that these kids are going to be missing out on, such as just simple things like social play skills, like getting up the communication and sharing, even stuck to a screen where you get you get satisfaction over and over. But it's just an interesting thought to think about, But there's always doom and gloom in everything that we when it comes to kids, I think.
So do you know why the X generation, which is my generation, do you know why X generation is called X generation?
No.
Because we were the first generation to be born with television in households. There was no TV. Like, my parents, when they were born, there was no TV. Can you imagine that? Having no TV, not even no computers,
TV.
no TV. You had radio, I think, was the only thing you might have had. So this whole idea of screens, goes back to more than 50 years.
Yeah, so we're battling it still, and it is something that maybe we do get a bit too excited over, in the fact in its negative effects. Like, yes, I feel like we do definitely need to maintain and control and be aware of it, but I think we do need to trust in our own abilities, and trust in each other to share and teach and understand.
So RP Jeffrey's also talking about switching their kids to the 80s and 90s TV for the Eagles of Cocomelon, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
Those were the days. Those were the days. We just had TV. And TV, look, back then, what's interesting, before video games became very common, television was blamed. Television and film, movies were blamed for all the evils. Now it's video games.
Now it's video games. Paxian Games makes a point as well. Like, TV was one thing, where phones and tablets are a whole new level of engagement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just on the phone to my mum before this, excuse me, and she's telling me how Dad was looking after my nephew, who's like 2 and a bit, and he's obsessed with the bin truck. And so he pulled up some video of one of the bin trucks on YouTube, and he was just locked in and like loving it.
Sorry,
And I think
what's a bin truck?
Garbage truck.
Like, yeah, the
garbage truck. Okay, sorry, yeah. Must be. It's a South Australian thing.
garbage. Garbage.
It's an Aussie thing. The bin truck. I knew what you said, but I haven't heard it called a bin truck either.
Yeah, but I guess maybe it's passed on from having to look after like the 2-year-old. But no,
Yeah.
I think for me it's like it's that sort of level, right, where it's like it's thoughtful. It's it's not just like what Paxton said, like these weird like manipulative things made by adults for kids. It's this kid's got an obsession with trucks and the
Yeah.
mechanisms, and thoughtfully putting it on for entertainment rather than sort of letting them at it. And so I don't know, I guess for the stats wise in video games, it's like, are we thoughtfully giving kids games that are encouraging their development, or is it just kids are being given a phone and they find their way into Minecraft Pocket Edition or whatever?
I guess it's all just up to the parents. I actually had a couple of these discussions with people at GCAP recently, and at least all the gamers, us and whatever, we're all really aware of this and are showing and like fostering that creativity. Like the parents do have control on time of what the kids play, and then let their curiosity lead them and then show them things. Just like you're saying, like if they're interested in trucks, they get to watch trucks, but like it's not like given the tablet and then have free reign. I think it's just like a lack of education from the parent there and not understanding it, whereas like we are all sort of aware of that because we're in this industry and sort of around technology all the time.
Yeah. If you jump to page 15, actually, there's some stats around parenting and games with their kids.
Okay.
Are you guys familiar with the term squeakers?
Squeakers.
I think so.
No.
Yeah.
Squeakers?
Is it like a clanker? I don't know.
If you
Like
play online
high-pitched
games...
High-pitched voices.
yeah. So if you play online multiplayer games with voice proximity chat, it's like you see this this character coming up to you in it, like as an adult, looks like an adult, and then this squeaky little voice comes out. They're usually obviously before they're obviously younger than puberty, so they are definitely kids. Used to get those a lot in Rust, so you get like 10-year-old kids running around in Rust, ganking people and doing all sorts of very, very much not where they should have been. But that whole idea of squeakers is kind of scary.
RP Jeffrey just made a comment on the like rock music, TV, video games. Where isn't there evil? Tale as old as time. Even the ancient Greeks blamed the youth. And this is something I think about a lot.
Youth,
like, there's always something to blame for the evil, right? And it doesn't mean I have an answer, but I'm just aware of like we're always sort of have this thing it's ruining our kids. Maybe that's not quite the case, and it's just a matter of nature versus nurture with how you grow, how you in your like time epoch.
I'm all for going back to the Amish. Let's all live like the Amish. I mean, isn't that where we're going?
They had the perfect technological amount at some random year and just went, yep, no more.
1800s, yeah. I mean, aren't we? Isn't
yeah.
that where we're going with net zero? Isn't that sort of the whole global warming? That's kind of where we're heading back to, because we can't if we can't burn fossil fuels and all that sort of stuff, we'll go back to the Amish.
I feel like net zero to me means we need to make better and more efficient technology. So we need to ditch what we have now and create stuff that's a bit more efficient.
We've got it. Why do we need to do that? We just go back to the 1800s. Buggy and cart.
Referencing getting up with the sun and milking the cows as part of game.
Yes. Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, there we go.
Character building.
Yes. Sorry. Well, let's get back and focused. Why do parents let their children play? So Fraser, please.
Yeah.
Please.
This is a little diversion from what I had planned, but I just thought we're talking about parents and kids, and Yeah, I mean, again, these graphs I'm not a huge fan of. Ending at 50%. So bear in mind that fun way to learn isn't at like 98%. That's 48. But
Oh,
generally, there seems to be a trend in this idea that parents think games are ways to learn, improve problem solving skills, creativity, those sorts of like developmental skills and abilities. Um, you know, it's not necessarily that games actually are helping with this, but at least of the surveyed parents, this is what they feel their kids are getting out of playing.
there's
and
there's
it tells us that they're aware.
there's definitely one category missing from there, and that's a cheap child mining service. Like,
Yeah.
come on,
Yeah, I
seriously?
feel like that
Where is that? Why is that not
definitely
there?
needs to be addressed. Is that our other?
No, that's
Which is
that's
almost 0%.
that's beyond fun way to learn. Look, you say that all the time, and look, I understand it, but the fact that it's not there tells me that they're lying.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't think many parents are gonna willingly admit to putting game devices in front of their kids to
Yeah.
sort of palm them off. But
That's another
That's true.
another concern with the study is that it's self-reported.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's down to how honest people are.
Yeah.
yeah, and I think some of these categories will be more or less impacted by that framing as well. But yeah, I mean, even here, like the other graph we've got is parents' use of rules for children's gameplay. So I think most parents want to say they have rules in place, but I could also believe that what is that? Almost the entire majority has at least some degree of rules in place for their kids. So yeah, it's I think it is interesting, taking it with a grain of salt and with that context in mind. But
It's a very large grain of salt. Yeah.
the other really interesting one actually is just on page 16, the next one down, which is adults correctly identifying restricted classifications. And so I was wondering, does anyone here know which of the ratings are actually legal and restrictive, and which ones are just recommendations?
There's legally binding ones.
What do you mean?
MA
do you mean?
15 and R18.
I believe that is the distinction.
That's what you mean? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the question.
Yeah, that's
I-
fair.
I-
It's
I had an
Yeah, 'cause
experience a number of years ago where a friend of mine, her 15-year-old got what would have been GTA back then, and she's pretty conservative. She's really quite conservative, and I'm like, pretty sure that game's R18 plus, and I kind of just said to her like, really? And she was like, oh, my son just got this game, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's 18 plus. And she just went off her head, like, oh, and I felt so bad actually after doing that, because the poor guy, he was 15. He was like, and I'm sure all his friends are playing it, and he was so keen.
Yeah.
And then his mum, I think, just took it through in the bin or something. So she didn't know.
No.
She didn't know. She had no clue,
Yep.
no clue. And she's pretty savvy. She's I think a graphic designer or something. How dare I ruin a childhood? I'm sorry. I'm very. I did feel so bad because it wasn't his fault. The poor guy is 15.
He would have found a way. He would have had friends.
No,
We
it
all
was a pretty
found a way.
pretty strict household. Yeah. But anyway, so she had no clue. So, and I think a lot of them, like when I was playing Rust a lot, there was so many squeakers on there, and I'm like, how do you play this game? And oh, I'm playing it on my dad's computer or something, whatever. So how did they couldn't have bought it? The game was not that cheap. How did they?
I
get
guess
into
the
Rust?
only way that it is really policed is like through the retailers, I guess, whether it's a digital retail store or a physical store. Like in physical, it's pretty easy. It's up to the shop. the clerk to be like, oh, this person looks under 15. I can't sell them an MA 15 plus game.
Yeah.
But I think digital storefronts probably pose a big issue there.
Well,
'Cause it's pretty easy to just say, yeah, I'm over 18.
the
You just tick a
government
box.
might be forcing there to be a solution to that come
Yes,
December.
Anthony Albanese has the the answer, as if that's going to
Yeah.
work, because kids
It's-
don't
Oh, yeah,
know.
what
Kids
is
don't know
that?
how to use VPNs or anything like that.
Pretty much, yeah, like locking them out of social media and everything until they're
Yeah.
16 plus. Yeah.
Yeah.
It means anyone who wants to use it has to prove they are over 16.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting topic too, because GitHub is on the list of
Mm.
sites, which is sort of like, why?
Is it? Why?
Yeah,
Because
Yeah,
politicians know nothing about technology and they make laws about technology. I mean, seriously. They shouldn't be allowed. They should not be allowed to make
Like,
laws about technology.
That's a little. Who was it? Pol Potish. You know, like locking away education for people who might want to seek it.
Well, look at YouTube
Yeah.
as well. And I mean, YouTube, like, you know, there's so much great stuff on YouTube. But if you're
Yeah.
under 16 now, you can't get access to it. It's, I don't know. And one of the problems as well is that, you know, kids are going to potentially head to unregulated sites if they want naughty stuff.
like 4chan.
No, 4chan's is one of the ones that's regulated in the UK, and they're taking the UK to court, saying that the UK government can't regulate a US company, which is kind of interesting.
It's going to be quite interesting to see if everyone sort of drops off from Facebook, Instagram, and all of that, and just goes to 4chan.
Yeah, I mean, it's like exactly. So I don't think they're doing the right thing, because they're dumb. They're politicians. You know how politicians' mind work. You know,
They just-
something we must do something. Oh, this is something. We must do this. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just like we must be doing something, and that's what we've got. This over 18
just-
garbage.
Yeah. And things always find a way. You know, whenever something's locked up, something will crop up that is meant to allow people in. You know, like
That's the internet.
hackers exist and they love
the
like
internet.
they exist to fight things like this.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the internet exactly.
yeah, yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens in Australia for that, I guess.
It's not just Australia. It's the UK. I think Canada's got something coming as
Commonwealth,
well.
is it?
Yeah. I mean, not that they're connected at all. Not at all. I'm sure New Zealand will have to get something in. But yeah,
Yep.
it's quite a few different jurisdictions.
Get the old Commonwealth to band together again.
Okay. Where are we going next, Fraser? Are we?
Yeah, should we move to
Page-
next slide?
24. So the last
24. Here we
things
go.
I think we can look at. They've got sort of summary by age group. So we've got the 18 to 34, we've got 35 to 64, and then 65 plus. Very small age groups, but this is like another sort of summary. And from memory, there were a few interesting sort of trends between the age groups. Also, this report is riddled with things I have problems with. Zeb and I got stuck for a while on a tangent about how useless a game genre like action/adventure is. So we'll leave that. We'll leave that be. We'll look at some of the actual.
All right. So what are we?
Even
What
this
are,
graph
what are
on the
we saying?
left? It says like who do the 18 to 13-year-olds play video games with socially? One of the categories is solo.
Yep.
That seems
We-
opposite terminology, but anyway.
Yeah.
It's like being
we weren't
self-partnered,
sure.
isn't it? Being self-partnered now, isn't that one of the things that a lot of famous people are who are single?
I don't-
Self
You haven't come across that,
No
isn't
idea.
that? Was it
I
Emma?
haven't come across that yet.
Emma Watson does it claim she's self-partnered because she's 35 and
Okay.
single. Yeah. So yeah, just so there you go. That's the same thing. Solo. You just playing by yourself.
I play socially solo.
Yeah.
I don't like.
I guess it could mean,
genuinely-
you know, like I actually would play a bit of like Final Fantasy, what was it, 14, online a bit, and I didn't do too much of the actual socializing with people because sometimes people just annoy me. But I liked the game for a bit, so when my friends weren't playing, I would socially play a game solo. Maybe that's what they're getting at there.
There you go,
Well,
Charlie.
I'm not sure because then in
I'm in
the
that
other
category.
category, they say you can play socially with strangers, which is different to playing socially solo. So,
Okay.
yeah, this is another one of the issues I've had with the report is just strange definitions. But yeah, I think on the next page over, they talk about how do 18 to 34-year-olds prefer to play together, and then you've got 33% competitive, 67% collaborative. And then you can see if you scroll through, because essentially this is like
Scroll
three
down.
sets of 2 pages. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same sort of stats for each age group.
Oh,
And
I
so you
see.
can
Oh,
see-
yes, I see.
Right.
You can see that graph. It goes from 33% competitive in the youngest. It then jumps up to 40%, and then by the last age group, it goes up to 45% in the 65.
So people are getting more competitive as they get older.
Yeah.
That's... I don't know, I wouldn't have picked that.
Right.
Maybe they're just getting angrier. Get off my lawn. It's like, get the hell out of here. I've got a shit life. You're gonna suffer.
There is
Take it out on you.
fewer people play multiplayer games as they get older. The proportion of players who only play alone goes up quite significantly by the time you reach 65 plus. I think
Yeah.
Oh.
the
I
stat
can see
earlier
that.
in the thing is like 70% of 65 and over were playing games alone. So I do wonder if like that the last 30% that's playing competitive games that may be playing stuff like Fortnite, where it's, you know, they can squad up with their grandkids or their other friends and play collaboratively in a competitive scene. But it is, yeah, it's interesting. I
So the
think I would have expected that to be
65 plus year olds are all playing like competitive, ultra competitive Tarkov or something.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm gonna get you. This is just like being
Well-
back in the war.
There is also, just next to that, you can see top 5 game genres for 65-year-olds is board/card. So maybe they're just
Yeah,
playing
solitaire.
fierce online chess.
Board
Yeah,
slash
it could
card.
be that, actually.
Oh,
And,
okay.
and one of their top 5 reasons to play is number 2 is Be Challenged, where everyone else, other age groups, is Be Challenged is the bottom one at number 5. So maybe they're bored, they're angry, they want a challenge, and they want to win.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be. Yeah. Yeah. It's okay. That's quite interesting.
This
to
is
see.
also the age demographic where there are fewer women than men playing proportionally.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
nice to
so
know
just
sort
on
of-
that page above.
What the women are doing. 47 female, 53 male.
Well, that kind of tracks with the, you know, what games were like at the start of, you know, like we were saying before, they was mainly, you know, shooters and whatnot, sort of directed at men, and then I guess, you know, 65 plus, it could go up to, you know, what were the
Yeah.
other age groups? 85, 80 if people still playing. Like women then would have been exposed to games that were enjoyable to them at that time. So I guess that kind
Well,
of tracks.
There is, and maybe there's a bit younger than 64. I'm thinking about one of my aunties who was very much into Doom, like Doom
Yeah,
and Doom
yeah.
2.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to assume that just because you're a girl you don't like shooters.
No, no, of course
yeah.
not. It was more so just I found it interesting because Zeb had a similar experience. So I'm like, there is, I think, around this age group, there is a proportion of women who yeah, were playing. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just confirmation bias because one other person had a similar story as me. But yeah, I think it's also interesting looking at, you know, the top 5 game genres. The top one is board and card, but then there's also puzzle, sport, action, adventure, and strategy. So sort of the only one that stands out there is board and card game. I think the other
the board and card.
age groups, it was very similar, just in a different order.
I think,
Interesting. Yeah. Sorry, Sam.
yeah, I have a fair few sort of issues with the data that they're presenting. So I'm going to take it all with a big grain of salt.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
I think one of the big things as well is if was all like if participants were found online, then we're talking about people who are at least somewhat familiar with computers and digital technology. So you're already more likely to be talking to people who are more aware of games. So yeah, there's plenty of reasons to be skeptical about a lot of these results, but I think it's also interesting to look at some of them.
Yeah.
It's just interesting looking at raw data. We can interpret and think of there better ways to do it, but it's cool just having this regardless.
Yeah, right. And having it just open and free to access as it is, it's really cool. It's not behind a paywall or anything like that. So
it'd be interesting to sort of compare some of it with publicly accessible data like Steam and Xbox user data to see if it sort of matches up. But you'd have to weight it for like the population, like limit it to Australian users, age group and gender to, and actual playtime, because Steam and Xbox would all have that telemetry data to.
Is it available? Can you download it though? Do you know?
I'll have a look.
I feel like they're pretty closed off on that sort of stuff, wouldn't they? But I don't know.
Yeah, that's there's some like marketing value in that, so they may not.
Yeah, exactly. On slide 22, actually, just to pivot the conversation a little bit, is games for education, and this was actually something that I came across quite a lot at GCAP just recently. Is a lot of people are working on educational games, and a lot of institutions are picking up games for teaching specifically, for all sorts of things in health, schools and whatnot. So I think that's something definitely to consider with these facts, as well as like a lot of people, games are now being used a lot more than just enjoyment. So that would definitely drive these stats.
Are there good ones out there? Because I mean, for a long time, educational games had quite a reputation as being crap, really boring.
I couldn't tell you if they're good or not. I just noticed the trend that a lot more institutions are pulling in games to teach.
So there's what I find is what they might be talking about is gamified education rather than educational games. And there seems to be sometimes a lack of understanding that gamified education is not a game. It's actually just education with some, with achievements and stuff built in. But if there are good educational games out, I would be very, very interested to have a look at them, because there's been some really
I think
ones.
In the sense, the ones that I heard were like very much simulations. They weren't so much games. Someone was I talking to was made a project to. It was for the federal. Who are they? The Federal Bureau, like our FBI, FBA or whatever.
The Federal Police, yeah.
Federal Police, yes.
AFP, yeah.
AFP is where I was getting at. To help people, it was a VR thing to help them get used to pretty much loud noises and being in stressful situations and making decisions, quickly. So it was just like a training tool where they would use it to get people being trained to be a part of the AFP to sort of sharpen their decision-making skills. So they're not like games and more simulations in this sense. I wonder if those are sort of considered within these sort of data.
Where did you come across that? Was that at the GPAC?
Yeah. Someone was working on games for the AFP.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's not a game. Yeah. It's definitely not a game, but I've certainly come across stuff similar to that previously, using game technology for training in the US Marines. Yeah, which is quite interesting. There's definitely interesting stuff in there. What I find with education is that there's a real lack of understanding of the power of games and how they can be used in a kind of an educational setting. But for instance, what you can potentially do with your avatar. So your avatar doesn't necessarily have to fit with your how you look physically. So I mean, you can experience what it's like to look like somebody else in a game environment, like an online game environment. Some research has gone into that in the sort of social psychology area, and they've found it can be quite effective because a lot of our identity is wrapped up in the way people treat us. And as I'm like a 6-foot Australian guy. If I'm walking down the street, people, or if I go and talk to people, talk to maybe a young 15-year-old group of young 15-year-old guys or whatever, they'll treat me in a certain way. Whereas if I was a female, maybe attractive, or whatever, those guys would treat me really quite differently. So that's quite an interesting sort of thing to do. But that's really beyond, when you talk about education, that's kind of well beyond the sort of 1 + 1 = 2 kind of educational experience.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a lot more there. So, yeah, we're kind of reaching the end of our stream time, guys.
Well, we've covered, I think, a lot of the key stuff from this report, so that's good timing.
Just look at some of the comments there. Gamification. So yeah, any final comments on this stuff?
I want more broader surveys and data on how Australia plays. I think
I want a larger sample pool. I want to be part of it,
and more context, and maybe a whole team of statisticians to figure out what the numbers mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're not just statisticians, like gamer statisticians, so they can provide the context in them.
Okay. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen today. But
Let me dream.
yeah, it is very hard to know. It's quite difficult to get. And any survey like this is how accurate is it? I don't really know. We can only conjecture, I guess. Cool. So next week we're looking at your game, Fraser.
Yeah, we can have a little look at what I've got put together.
Cool. Nice.
And we'll check out Sam and Charlie's game jam as well.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. A couple of games to look at. And I'm sure we'll have some other stuff going on as well. So look, thanks for everyone for coming along and chatting. That's great. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back same time next week. So what time? 3:30 on a Thursday. And we'll catch you guys same time next week. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Catch
Awesome.
you later.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
See you
Thanks
guys.
for having me.
See you later.